Today we'll be learning Yimit Hashem Daf Nun Aleph on Beis. We will start at the end of Daf Nun Aleph Amud Aleph. So we're going to need to take our minds back to the Mishnah, and if it's possible, even actually to look at the Mishnah would probably be better, because this whole discussion here involves the entire Mishnah. So in the Mishnah, we had two scenarios. We're talking about somebody who's traveling, and there's more than two scenarios, but let's say, so one scenario was in the Mishnah that the person who's traveling, he wants to be able to reach So in the Mishnah, we have a few scenarios. One is that the person is traveling and he wants to reach home, and therefore he decides that since he's about 4,000 amas away from his house, from the city, so he decides that he has a certain place, and say the route, the tree trunk, and says and decides that that place will be where his Kohen Shvisa. Tree trunk is more or less in the middle between where he is now and where his destination is, and therefore, as it's getting dark, he decides and he says, let my shvisa, I want to be Kohen Shvisa by the tree trunk, which is quite a distance away. We learned before that that you have to have the ability to get there before the shkir in order to be Kohen Shvisa. You have to have you have to have the potential ability to get it before the shkir. Anyway, so in this scenario where he does know and is able to pinpoint and say where exactly he wants to be Kohen Shvisa, so he actually gets 4,000 amas from where he is presently to walk during this Shabbos, which it's getting dark and it's going to come in very soon. The other scenario is of somebody who is doesn't know the halachas, and he says Shvisasi b'mkoimi. He says, I want to be Kohen Shvisa where I'm standing. So if he says Shvisasi b'mkoimi, so then he has only 2,000 amas in each direction from where he is right now. So therefore, he would not be able to reach his destination, which is 4,000 amas away. But he does have 2,000 amas, because he said Shvisasi b'mkoimi. He has 2,000 amas from where he is centered. The common denominator in both these scenarios is that he's being Kohen Shvisa just by saying, he's Kohen Shvisa without actual putting down bread, without making, he's making Eruv Tchumen without putting down bread. That's the common denominator in both of them. Nevertheless, it is effective. So whether the case, so let's go back again. The second case, which we mentioned, is a case that he's Kohen Shvisa where he is standing. So he's Kohen Shvisa where he is standing without any bread, and then it's only 2,000 amas in each direction. Or the first case, again, is Kohen Shvisa without any bread, but in the first case, is Kohen Shvisa at a certain distance from where he is standing. He is specified that place, but it's a certain distance, so he's not even there. Okay, potentially he's able to get there before the shkir. Then we have a machlekes, which is in the Mishnah. This leniency, which we just spoke about, that you're able to make tchum without actually putting the bread there, So towards the end of the Mishnah, it says, "V'zuhi she'omru ha'oni ma'ar b'raglo." So this is what we said, that ha'oni is ma'ar b'raglo. So there was a saying which was said in the time of the Mishnah that ha'oni ma'ar b'raglo. Something that's part of the Mishnah is obviously a leniency. There is a certain leniency for an oni meaning somebody who doesn't have bread. So there's oni kile ma'ar b'raglo. So yes. So that's therefore this concept is a concept of ha'oni ma'ar b'raglo, which is a leniency. The question is who exactly said this statement, but anyway, but that is the statement in the Mishnah of V'zuhi she'omru ha'oni ma'ar b'raglo. Then, so you have an argument of Rabbi and Yehuda that Rabbi says that that only an oni can be ma'ar b'raglo, but somebody an osher it has to put the bread. So according to Rabbi, the osher, who most people when they're not traveling would be an osher, because if somebody's at home, he always has bread. So therefore, somebody who's at home, he does have bread, and therefore he's considered an osher. A traveling person doesn't have bread, so it's considered an oni. So therefore, for the osher, according to Rabbi, you cannot make an erev without bread. So this heter, which is only applies to an oni. So it's quite obvious that Rameir's saying that it only applies to oni is connected to what the line I mentioned before. I mentioned before the line which that statement actually suggests very strongly that there is sort of leniency for an oni, and so Rameir certainly fits into that saying. So he's certainly a person who holds that saying. We will see a bit more about that in the Gemara, but certainly Rameir holds that saying, and he says yes that this leniency is only for an oni without having bread. Rabbi Yehuda says that no, that Rabbi Yehuda says that even an osher, Rabbi says even an osher does not need to use bread. So Rabbi Yehuda says that even an osher can make an erev with chumin without bread. He can make it just with being there. With being there, just being there, he can even without bread, you can make an erev, even if you're an osher. Now, the Gemara here is going to discuss in what cases, in what of the two cases which we mentioned before is the argument of Reb Meir and Rabbi Yehuda. So let's just repeat. In the Mishnah, there were two cases. I mean, there's more in the Mishnah, but the ones which I'm mentioning now. So the two cases are one of a person who wants to make the erev at a certain distance from where he is standing. That's one case in the Mishnah, and the Mishnah says he's able to do that. If the traveler is able to make an erev at a distance from where he's traveling, that's one case. And the other case where the Mishnah says you can do that is when that the traveler is able to make these where he's actually present, to make that the center of his tchum. Of course, if he makes that, he won't be able to go as far as in the previous case. But anyway, so he's actually present where he wants to be Kohen Shvisa. That's the second case. So in which of these two cases, and that is the discussion in our Gemara, which of these two cases is the machlokes between Rabbi Yehuda and Rabbi Meir, that Rabbi Yehuda will say, yes, everybody can make such a type of erev, and Rabbi Meir says, no, only an oni can make such a type of erev. Okay, I'll go back to the Gemara and try and work it into the words of the Gemara. So it's a quote. That's the piece of the Mishnah, which is obviously the Mishnah saying that there's a leniency over here. that the oni can make the air without the food. Omer Meir, and Meir says, "Oh yes, honor and honor oni." Yeah, it's only yes, this whole concept of making an air without food, or not this whole concept. I don't want to prejudge the discussion in the Gemara. That this concept that you can make an air without food is only applies to an oni. Okay, Omer of Nachman. So Rav Nachman says machloikas, the machloikas that in the machloikas. So Rav Meir takes a stricter view, and he says that only an oni can make without bread, and Rabbi Yehuda says even an osher can make without bread. So Rabbi Yehuda is more lenient. It says an osher can also make without bread. Now this case where Rabbi Yehuda takes a more lenient view is only bimkoimi, when it's only in the second scenario of the Mishnah. So according to Rav Nachman, this machlekes, where Meir maintains that this leniency is only for an oni, and Rabbi Yehuda says that that actually even an osher can make an air without any bread. So that machlekes is bimkoimi. In the second scenario, the person wants to be kohen shvisa where he's actually standing. The Rameir Saba, you can air pass, because that Rameir says that the main takana of Eruv, how the Eruv was, that you need pass. That's the main takana. So anytime you're doing not without pass, that's an exceptional case, which without a special leniency you cannot make it without pass, because Iker Eruv pass. That's the Rameir's opinion, according to where Rav Nachman presents. So Iker Eruv pass, oni with a kilo berabonon. So if you're an oni, you don't have any bread, like you're on a journey, that's the most likely scenario of an oni. The kilo berabonon. So the rabbanon will make it. Aval osher loy. But if you osher, if you have the bread, and so then you cannot make this eruv even bimkoimi. So if an osher decides to walk out of his city and say walk $1,000 to be kohen shvisa there, and he didn't take any bread with him, I'm sorry, that does not work. You cannot. If you're an osher, like I said, if you're within the city, if you're not traveling, you're in the city. Most people are osherim, and that for the other side, instead of taking bread, a bit too cheap on the bread, he'll just go and be kohen shvisa with going there, Erev Shabbos being there, being a shmoshes, and then going back, etc. So then, loy, that is, you cannot be kohen shvisa, because the takana was made that you should do it by bread, and without the leniency for exceptional circumstances, you cannot do it by actually even by being physically present. It doesn't work. Rabbi Yehuda says, "Ikar no. The main thing is the aid of how you kohen shvisa. How you kohen shvisa is by being there. This is my place. When you are in a certain place, that is how you kohen shvisa. Say, I'm staying Shabbos here. I'm here right now. It's been a shmoshes, and I'm going to stay Shabbos here. That's the main thing. The Chachamim permitted you to do echad ani v'echad osher. It doesn't make a difference. Ani and osher. If you're there, you can be kohen shvisa. That is the main way of being kohen shvisa. But the only thing is that if you're rich, you don't have to bother to go there. You can put somebody else with bread. But right. So, but that is only. So, in other words, the machlokes where Rabbi Yehuda is more lenient is only if you're actually there with your feet. If you want to make an eruv at a distance from you, you have to say, I will be kohen shvisa under that tree. That for sure, there's nothing to discuss. You're not being kohen with actually being present. If you're not being present, even Rabbi Yehuda agrees that is only a special leniency which was made for the person who was going and traveling. He said, you know what, you can be kohen shvisa if you say a certain tree, which is a distance. Yeah, I'll be kohen shvisa. That's only for the oni. The divrei hakel oni ein osher loy. Right. So everybody says that osher cannot do that. Even Rabbi Yehuda. The Zui Shamro man katon l'Rameir, and the Zui Shamro oni ma'arab b'raglav. In other words, the this part of the Mishnah, this saying, it says Zuish. This is what we said. The Oni is Ma'ar Baraklov. That is Rameir, and Rameir is saying that, and Rabbi Huda argues on that point. This is only Rameir. And on which scenario, when we say Zuhi Sha'amru, Oni Ma'ar Baraklov, which scenario is it talking about? It's not talking about the case of it's not talking about the case of when you're doing it further away. If you're doing it further away, not only Rameir says that it's a special leniency for one. The Zui Sha'amru that with Zui Sha'amru Onim Aragov is part of the words of Rameir, and he is referring by Hey Koi. What's he referring to? The person who doesn't know it, he doesn't know like where a certain tree is. In other words, he has. That's why he's not Baki Balacha, and he's kind of been koimot. So to talk about the case, the scenario of for whatever reason, he's either in a makir or he doesn't know a place to at the further distance to make the shvisa, or he which because he can't specify it, or he's not Baki Balacha the kids. So he's making a big koimot on that. That is still. It was only Rameir. It's only Rameir that says V'zui Sha'omro that is a leniency for Ashenkin contributor. It's not true because in the case of Ibn Kaimi, everybody can make it. And V'loi Omro Ma'avim right. But then the second part, the second piece in the Mishnah. Now we're referring to the second Mishnah. So that part of the Mishnah, Zui Sha'omro, is Rameir, and Rabbi Huda argues on that. Because he says no, even the usher is good. Then you have after the words of Rabbi Huda in the Mishnah, it says that this that the pass is the kula. In other words, the main erev is not the pass. The main erev is by being there. So that's a veloy omru pass elolohokil. So that those words which are towards the end of the Mishnah, very much towards the end of the Mishnah. So they are saying that the main thing of the erev is not really the bread. It's to make it easy for you to make, but the main erev really is by being there. So that is mamash Rabbi Huda, Mankton Rabbi Huda. So that's the opinion of Rav Nach. Whereas according to Rav Chizda, which we're going to have in a minute, so Rav Chizda's opinion is that, let me conclude, that if you say b'mokim ploini, even Rabbi Yehuda will agree that since you're not there with your legs, Rabbi Yehuda will agree that it only say leniency only for an on. That leniency that you can say b'mokim ploini, you specify a tree which is at a distance from you, that leniency, even Rabbi Yehuda will agree to Rabbi Meir that leniency only applies to Ani, and he doesn't argue against Rabbi Meir in that case. Rav Chizda says Machloek is b'mokim ploini, that according to Rav Chizda, everybody agrees that you don't really need to have bread. According to Rav Chizda, both Rabbi Meir and Rabbi Huda, they agree that by being present is the best type of erev that you can have. That's no question about it. Therefore, Ani Osher doesn't make it the best type of erev is being there. But what is the argument? The argument is that even if you're not there, Rabbi Huda actually has a leniency, and Rabbi Huda will say that even for an Osher, it works. Yeah, but everybody agrees that the best thing is being there present is better than bread. But if you're just saying at a distance from where you are, that's where the machlokes of Rameir is. So it says machlokes mokim ploni. Rameir says oni en osher like this leniency that you can say mokim ploni. You're not even there. You're just saying I want to be punished at a certain place. So and it's permitted. It's only for oni. Asher and osher no. Very Huda says echad oni ve'echad osher. Which 1 second. So that would mean that, for instance, if somebody is in the city and he says, I should be koina, somebody in the city is considered an usher, right? Somebody is considered an usher. He says, I want to be koina shvisa like 1,000 amas from the city. He has a place, he has a hut there, whatever it is. Says, that hut, I should be koina shvisa. So So if he has a place where he's Konish Shvisa in 1,000 hours of the city, so Rabbi Huda says it won't work because you're not there. If you physically go there without the bread, okay, that's fine. There's no issues. But without the bread, you're an usher. Sorry, this is only a heter for an ani who's on. That means somebody's on the way, doesn't have bread. Rabbi Huda says echad ani v'echad usher. That this was made even for an usher as well. That even if he doesn't actually go there, which is not so good, but nevertheless, if you say shvisasim or complaining, yes, it will. It still be kind of a shvisa. You can be kind of shvisa by that. That's what it really says. Albim koimai divrahakel. But if the person is standing there and says, "Where I'm standing should be divrahakel." The ikar el bereglahu says because of course the main the bread shows that you're living there. If you're there but you're by yourself, no, that's the best living there that you're in. That we say that that part of the Mishnah, which is before the words of Rameir, which says that only man keton Rameir. So those words are said by Rameir. That this is a special leniency only for an oni. That doesn't change between Rav Nachman and Rav Chizda. It's a special influence. But which scenario is it talking about? This is a special influence for oni is even a mayor. He says that it's only in a scenario of he wasn't there. He was saying in a different place from where he's actually standing. Is what's it called? Which scenario is it going? Right. And he wants to, and that's the first case in Mishnah, that he wants to, at a certain distance from where he's standing, he wants to be Kohen Shvisa. So on that case, he say V'zu Yisham. If you look at the Mishnah, that means it's not the case exactly preceding the words V'zu Yisham. The V'zu Yisham is going the case before the case that immediately close to the case of V'zu Yisham, going further back to the beginning of the Mishnah. Yeah, so that's going to be further back to the Mishnah, and but then what does change in the it's in the last few words of the Mishnah. The last few words of the Mishnah was said that the whole bread is a kula. The emes that the bread is a kula, but the main eruv is by actually being present there. So that is not just the opinion of Rabbi Huda, that's the opinion of everybody, that's even the opinion of Rabbi Meir. If you're actually there. If you're not there, that's what the Machlokes is. Okay. Tanya will learn the Brisa that are kind of what's the Brisa like Rav Nachman. What says the Brisa? Echad ani v'echad osher me'avra v'pas. Okay, everybody, on your osher, you can use bread. Okay. And it says this, v'lo yetzi osher, now, v'lo yetzi osher chutz tchum. The usher shouldn't go to the edge of the tchum. It means at the edge of the tchum. That means puts the tchum over here, or maybe that outside within the daldamas of the tchum. So you shouldn't go there to the edge of the tchum, and without bread. So the usher should not go without bread. Which, like any person who lives in the city, is going. It's called usher. He'll go to the edge of the tchum by the shkia. I want to be Kohen Shvisa there. No, that's not good. If you're coming from the city, it just won't work. If you should Omrim Avrim Beregel, you didn't say that you can have a regel by being present, but with your feet, being present. El Misha Baba Derech. Only if somebody who's in the middle of traveling, a traveler is an oni. So then it works. But if you're in the city, I'm sorry, it doesn't work. You have to put the bread there. Rabbi Huda says no. It's fine. 1 second. So even here with the opinion of Rabbi Meir, so you see that the Meir is talking about the Shvisosim Koimi. That's what the opinion of Rabbi Meir is. The opinion of Rabbi Meir, on which Rabbi Huda is going to argue, is not going to be on the first scenario in the Mishnah, but the second scenario in the Mishnah, like Rav Nachman. This is that the argument is going to be B'Shvisosim Koimi. So he says, that the Shvis is where I'm standing, and even then, Rabbi doesn't agree that it's not good because you're not sure it's not effective. According to Rav Chizda, even Rabbi will agree it's effective. So you see, it's like a machman, right? And Buddha says, the says even the Osher can also do beregel, because his opinion, as we're going to see in a second, is that the main Erev is by being present, even better than bread. Let's see. You can go to the border of the Kum. Even the Osher can do that. That's the and that is the main Erev, is by actually being there. You don't sending something to that you're there. You're actually there. It's even better. Send the air with somebody else. To make it easy. Okay. So we have proved from this brisa that like Rav okay. Omar says, so this, I guess, the families of Bismamel and Bisgurion, they were in Arema, that's the city where they were living. It was a year of hunger, and they were giving out dried raisins, smoking dried raisins, and Gregres is dried figs. So they were giving out, they had a lot of stuff, the stock, and they were giving out to poor people in B'shnei Batzeres. Right. And so people want to get to eat there on Shabbos, to get this is a year of hunger. So they wanted to get there on Shabbos. So boyin aniye kvar shichin kvar shichin aniye kvar chananya and umchashchen al tchum. So they would go there. They wanted to Shabbos to be able to go there and have some of the stuff, eat some of the food. So therefore they would go by the shkia. They would be by the tchum without any food, and the mochas mashkimu boim, and then the next day, so they were there by the shkia, they were there by themselves. They came there, they stood by the they stood by the place with kohen shvisa by being there, and that means they did not use bread. They were kohen shvisa by actually being there, not using bread, and and then later the machas mashkim boim. Then tomorrow on the day of Shabbos they would actually go. So so that was a proof to Rabbi Yehuda that that even people who are shirim, because they were aniyim obviously, but if they're home they consider shirim because there's no such thing. You don't have a bit of bread you have. Everybody has a bit of bread. So therefore they are considered shirim. Nevertheless, even though they were shirim, they actually did it without the bread. So that's right. Rabbi Yehuda that echad hashim v'echad aniyim they could do without the bread. But the scenario is where they did it. They actually had the feet that didn't say, "Oh, I should be cleaning somewhere else." At this, yeah. Okay. So that fits in with this whole brisa. This is the end of the brisa. This is Rabbi Huda bringing proof himself. It all fits in with the Ramah. Rashi says, our Mishnah also is Fidaik. Our Mishnah also seems like Rav Nachman, and the reference not to our Mishnah which we just learned, but to our Mishnah which we're going to learn in Mishnah tomorrow. So the Tanya says that's the next Omelim. Mishiyot Leir Shemarvin Law. So there's the city, and there's a city which people go there to that city, and they make an Erev. Usually they make an Erev there, and therefore that's within the 4,000 amas. Therefore they're able to walk there. The kids this time, this Shabbos, they did not make an Erev. Many times they make an Erev, but they didn't. The kids, but this person, he did go. He wanted to go to that city. Didn't take any bread with him and anything like that. Yeah, but he wanted to go to that city. And his friend told him to come back, persuaded him to come back. Okay, so he started his journey. Where did he start his journey? He was actually going to go to the other city. He was going to go to the other city now, before the Shkia. He was going to the other city because he had Rashi explains, he had a house in the other city. So he was actually going to go there. And obviously this is his main living area. So it's quite obvious that if he's going to the other city, that he wants that the shvisa should be somewhere between. It's not it's not that he it's not that he's going to stay there and not come back. He probably was thinking of come back as well. So therefore, if he's going to that city, so he's on the way to that city, and he wants to go to the other house, and it says, "Nah, come back." I don't know, whatever it is, whether it's too hot, too cold, whatever it was. Is who mutalela. So then the next day in the morning, so he can go. Why? Because when he went out on the journey, he was going on the journey. He was going to go the entire 4,000 hours. So he was going on a journey. The moment he's going on a journey, so he's considered an oni. If he's going on a journey, he's considered an oni. Now, when he was going on the journey, where was his intention? What was his intention? Where would be his mokum shvisa? He didn't say anything. If he'd say anything, we would know. So he said nothing. So we're just trying to assume what his intention was. So we're trying to assume what his intention was. They say, okay, if he's been going out and he wants to go now to the other city, and surely he's not giving up on this city, and maybe part of the distance he would walk would have to be on Shabbos. So therefore, is obviously that his intention was to be koinish in the middle. Okay, so his intention was to be koinish in the middle. Right. But you were assuming that's his intention. But then later he came back. So he came back. So what do we say? Who motalelach? So he is able to walk to walk on the next day. He's able to walk all the way because he has a place in the center where he was going to shvisa. But the rest of the people city are also. And Rabbi asked, I explained something for the Gemara now. I said it earlier. Okay, my apologies. What's the difference between him and the rest of the city? I mean, they both didn't make an Erev. So what's the difference? That he has another house in the other place, and he has there's two Tchum Shabbos, so you need to have a place in the middle. If you want to go backwards and forwards on Shabbos, you have to have a place in the middle where you can shvisa. So he does right. So Ihu, he went to Nafkel Orcha. Since he went out for the he started traveling, Havli Oni is considered Oni. Hani Ashirmin. So he is considered an Oni. So therefore he's considered an Oni. So that's why, what happened over here? He didn't reach the center. He didn't reach the center where he's going to be Kohen Shvitza. He walked out, let's say he walked 500 amas. So he was going to walk for 4,000 amas. And he went 500 amas. And the guy persuaded him to come back. So he wanted to be Kohen Shvitza at the end of 2,000 amas. It's obvious. I know he didn't say anything, but that's obvious because he was planning to go to the other city right now. So how would he come back during the day? So it was always that he wanted to be kind of Shvisa in a bit somewhere. So therefore, he's considered Oni. Why is he considered Oni? Because he's going away. He's traveling. He's not basing. So he's traveling. He wants to be there for the night. He wants to be there in the other city. So Kitza, if he wants, since he's traveling, this would not work. If you're just going to your tchum, it wouldn't work. But if you're traveling at a long distance, so you consider an Oni. So it seems to me that the reason why it's considered an Oni is because he wants to travel a long distance. Even though the Poel, he only traveled 500 amas, let's say. If you're in the city and you want to be Kohen Shvisa in a certain place, and you don't intend to travel much further, you just want to travel just to be Kohen Shvisa within the 2,000 amas of your distance, then you would not be considered an Oni because you're not really traveling much further. But since he is intending to travel all the way right now, so he's already considered an Oni, even though he's not reached so far. So, right. So he's considered an Oni. The staff was considered an Oni, and so therefore he's according to what according to Rabbi Yehuda, yes, you're Kohen Shvisa, but more complaining. You can be Kohen Shvisa, more complaining in that place. Is iu kiv v'nafkel orcha havale Oni v'hanach asher minu. and the other Ashirim. Right. So what do we see over here? What have we proved over here? We have proved over here from that Mishnah that he can go all the way. He has a tchum, and he was Kohen Shvisa. But some Mokim Pliny didn't get to the mark of the 2,000, where the center between the two cities. He didn't get there. Nevertheless, since a traveler, he's an oni. He's an oni, therefore it works. What about the other people? The other people also, they had in their mind to go, usually to go there. Maybe they forgot to put Erev this week or something, but they had in their mind to go there. So they also had the mind that all the other people had the mind, that the city had the mind to go there. But they're not, because they were not traveling. So that, even though they also want the Mokim Pliny to be Kohen Shvisa, it doesn't work. So you see that even Rabbi Huda, who is the one that says that for an Oshir, the leniency is not only for an Oni, even for an Oshir. Sorry, the Rabbi Huda that says, basically says that it's not only an Oshir, but even it's not only an Oni can make such an Erev, but also an Oshir can make. He's not talking about the Mokim Pliny, because this case of the next mission coming up, is a case of Mokim Pliny. It's a case of Mokim Pliny, and the people in the city, which are considered Ashirim, they are not Kohen of the Erev, and the person who's traveling, who is considered an Oni, he is Kohen of the Erev. So you see that the Mokim Pliny, even Rabbi Huda agrees, there's a difference in Oni and Oshir, which goes in with the Shita of Rabbi. So that's the proof. Masne Rav Chibar Ashi L'chiyah Barav Kamei de Rav. So Rav Chibar Ashi was teaching Rav Barav in front of Rav, Echad Oni ve'Echad Oshir. That it was so the opinion of Yehuda, that he says even Osher is able to make a Erev with walking there, not just a non. Even Osher can make an Erev. Amar Rav says, Nami halacha. Finish off and say when you're teaching, finish off the teaching, my son, and teach him halacha keruvah. Halacha like Yehuda, that. We remember the point we said, what that the main Erev is considered beraglayim. If it's not the Mokim Pliny, it's just by being there is sufficient both for an Oni and for an Oshir, because the main Erev is by actually being there. Thank you very much for listening.